morning, my moment friends, my Meredith Lynch co-host, always here beside me. The two of us yakking back here today. Chuck Norris died this morning. As I was walking in the door, I got that notification. Did you know he was alive?
I guess I did know he was alive, but also like it just brought me back to the like Chuck Norris of it all in 2008, 2009, where Gen Z probably doesn't understand this, but like Chuck Norris was for a very long time like a punchline.
I was just saying to Vienna before we got on here, I've never seen a Chuck Norris movie.
All I know him from
is as a punchline to jokes about Chuck Norris.
At like a very specific time for millennials.
100%. Well, I also feel like I've said this before. I feel like memes now, when we were in high school, were just like Anchorman quotes that boys said back and forth to one another. And Chuck Norris is like sort of one of those things.
Yeah, you know? That's what it was. But he did definitely have like a moment in millennial culture that like I don't know he would have normally had because like I didn't really know about him before.
Yeah.
And
then he turned MAGA.
He did turn MAGA. Anyway, I mean, I don't want anybody to die.
No.
How old was he though?
I think he was 86.
That's you know what I say. That's a nice long life.
That's a nice. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know if I want to live too much past 86.
I would like to live to 90.
Yeah. I would even say 95. I'm just saying, like, you get to 86 and you're like, yeah, that feels good.
Although the quality of like life is declining rapidly. So Chuck Norris probably died at like a peak. You know what I mean? Like
yes, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Shorter
that's
lives
what I'm saying,
too.
It's
so
like I don't want to do.
Anyway, well,
we're here. We're alive. I'm happy to be alive. There's a story that blew my mind this week. I think it blew a lot of people's minds. You and I were in the room together when we found out the New York Times. Well, actually, first, let me tell you. Today, we're going to talk about the New York Times César Chávez investigation, which has upended years of history and opened all sorts of questions about leftist spaces and women and Dolores Huerta. And then we're going to talk about Taylor Frankie Paul, who was supposed to be the Bachelorette this season. That season got canceled on ABC 3 days before air because of domestic violence videos that were leaked. It was harrowing. And then we're going to talk to Nithya Raman, who is a council member here in LA running for mayor. And she's sort of LA's Zoran, maybe some are saying. And we're really excited to talk to her about the campaign that she's running. I think there's a lot of people who are frustrated with how things are going on in LA. And, Nithya versus Spencer Pratt. So we're going to get into it with her.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you have been following this César Chávez story really closely. And I want to hear, what's the latest? I actually just, when I woke up this morning, saw that Dolores Huerta did an exclusive ABC interview.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yes,
okay.
It's just come out.
Let's talk about what happened and then what's going to happen. So this week, the New York Times released a years-long investigation. I also want to talk about the journalism here because it was like truly, exceptional journalism. They did a years-long investigation into sexual assault and rape allegations against the civil rights leader César Chávez, who head up the United Farm Workers movement during the 1960s, 70s, 80s. He was a huge civil rights advocate in the United States and especially here in California. But among the revelations, there were several now women who were girls at the time who shared terrifying allegations. But the most sort of shocking of them was Dolores Huerta, who was a co-founder of the United Farm Workers movement, was among I guess she was a woman, she was 19 the first time it happened, according to this article. She was among the people who were raped by César Chávez, and she had 2 children whom she had to give up for adoption. And like just the amount of true heroism, like, my God, she released a statement and talked about how she had to put the movement ahead of her. It really is just unbelievable. She's 96 years old, speaking of living a long time, and to have held this in for so many years, because she believed in this movement so much was so interesting. And I think part of what fascinated me about the story, other than just like digging into the journalism of it all, is this complicated relationship between leftist movements where it's like the movement is righteous and all of these like sexism, racism, misogyny, homophobia, these all still exist in those spaces, and they're sort of inescapable. And this is something that I see people like leftists online sort of neglecting,
Yeah, and what I think happens still to this day, because, this happens with Dolores Huerta in, I would think, the 60s.
I think,
right? If she was
yeah,
19.
I think so.
Okay.
Yes.
So, but, this goes all the way into the 70s because there were also, I was reading through.
Yeah. It's like a many years long situation. Like it wasn't like he had like a one-time thing. It's like several girls corroborated.
Yes.
Like it is very well reported.
Yes.
Sorry, go ahead.
But what I keep thinking about is the fact that, like, I think Dolores Huerta brings up a point that a lot of survivors experience, which is, I cared about the movement so much that I didn't want to come forward. And what I see sometimes happen in leftist spaces is people will say, like, hey, XYZ about this candidate, this person, this act, and people will go, no, you got to ignore that because what they do is so much better, or they've done this XYZ thing, or everybody makes mistakes, or how do you know that's true? And it's like, that is, I'm sure, what would have happened to her. She would have been vilified. I mean,
I don't think it would have even.
It wouldn't have even. Yeah. But now, when you start, I've been hearing some chatter about some stuff, and I know that the response to things is going to be, how dare you strike down the Democratic Party?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, this is one of the things that she said in her statement. I also, I posted about this and it got a lot of reshares. Is I actually think that this was an example, the New York Times specifically, but institutional journalism gets a lot of hate these days. I really felt like this was a really good example to talk around why the New York Times is still a really important part of our culture. And like the reasons that I thought about that, one is like within the body of this article, if you look through, they'll have a claim and they'll go through and have the woman's voice in the story. And then the last paragraph of that section, they'll go through and give you some like basically behind the curtain and be like, we corroborated this with, we fact checked this against the library, the archives,
records, photos. We talked to people that they had confided in.
Yeah.
There have been DNA tests too.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, there have been DNA tests. And so it's like, I also don't think people should have to go through like all of these things.
Of course,
but this is what good journalism is.
What I was going to say is, I think that this is, like part of why Dolores Huerta was able to come out in this way is that institution, is the sort of like infrastructure around her and these women that are like, this is in, you can't refute this. This is irrefutable, is like, we've done enough of the work here that it would be very hard for somebody to come forth and be like, she's lying, or for her to be, I'm sure they're facing all sorts of things, but with an institution like the New York Times around them, and with that level of reporting, they started reporting this in 2021, so it's a 5-year.
It's like the Spotlight movie, I think, did a really good job of helping people who might not be in that world of journalism and reporting look at like, there is like sort of, you have to go on hunches and you have to like, look, but like that doesn't mean that those things make print at all. And so,
and in fact, there might even just be one line at the end. You know what I mean? Like some of this stuff is about like, how do you just get that one line that corroborates the bigger story, and how do you put that together?
Right. And so I do think this is the case for why we need good journalism. But then at the same time, I'm like, yeah, I'm so glad this story happened, and I'm so glad that the journalist who did it had the backing of the New York Times, because it's also like a big part that people don't realize is like, a lot of this is about protections for journalists.
Oh, totally.
So when
you can't, it's expensive to do this type of journalism. I think that's part of my point too, is like, I love independent journalists, and like, don't get me wrong, independent journalists can do amazing work, but this type of like 6 years long with the legal protections, with the ability to go into the archives, with, like that takes money, big money. And the way the New York Times makes that money is off their op-ed section, their games app, their cooking app, all the stuff that people, their constant political coverage, all the stuff that people hate on them is how they make their money, so that...
Who's hating on the games app?
No, I mean, I think people hate on the New York Times because like they can be a little bit like,
I'm doing the Monday crossword because it's the easiest one.
I'm a big Wordle connections person, but like the Washington Post wasn't able really to figure that out. And then Jeff Bezos came in and bought it. And now they're struggling with their journalism. They have massive layoffs. And so I just felt like this was, among other things, a really incredible example as to why, as imperfect as that system is, and I have a lot to say about corporate media, it's important. And now, by the way, March 31st is historically César Chávez Day. California lawmakers are now calling it Farm Workers Day. There's conversations about parks changing and streets changing. Like, if you're not in LA, everything is named
Oh my
Chavez
gosh,
here.
everything. And like, he's on murals, he's on, statues, etc.
Imagine these women, like, how much, like, to have to see this all the time. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I think one of the things that I'm seeing a lot of people, and this is actually going to get into our next topic as well, though, is one of the things that I'm seeing a lot of people say, and I totally get it, but one of the things I'm seeing a lot of people say is, well, why can we act this swiftly for César Chávez or for Taylor Frankie Paul, but we cannot act this swiftly for our own president, who also raped someone?
Yeah.
Like, and I do think like but I also think it's like, all right, so what do we do here?
Yeah, what do we do?
Because I think what part of like, he is in charge. He's incredibly litigious. He's incredibly dangerous. And so I'm not saying that like people shouldn't speak out or whatever, but like, we've seen where this goes. It goes nowhere.
I was going to say, first of all, it didn't happen swiftly with César Chávez.
Right. Well, but like,
I know
once
what you're
it's
saying.
all come to light, we never knew this.
But I guess my point being is like, it's easier for things in retrospect like this, somebody who's passed away, to make those decisions. I also think like with Trump, it's not just the problem is the New York Times, has all sorts of flaws. This is not me like standing. There's a lot of ways in which I stand the New York Times, but the New York Times can only do so much. We've impeached Trump twice.
Right.
Like, that's the real problem, is that like our mechanisms for pulling a president out of the presidency when they do illegal things is broken. And so I think that's the bigger problem, is like, you can do all of like these stories keep on coming out and we're like, I don't know. And I think that's the bigger problem, is that our institutions are just like not strong enough to hold this political moment.
Right. Well,
but
another really big story right now that is also like deeply sad. Like, I'm seeing a lot of people post jokes about it because I think it's rooted in reality TV, which like has, just like an inherent sort of.
You convinced me this was the story to cover. I was like, like, come on. And you convinced me. So,
well, the ABC has officially canceled the upcoming season of The Bachelorette, which was set to feature reality star Taylor Frankie Paul, who really blew up on Secret Lives of Mormon Wives after videos of her committing domestic violence against her ex-partner were released in the last day or so. But this all kind of came to light because she had been arrested, I believe, again recently for domestic violence. And what I think is really, I guess I call it interesting, but what I think is really concerning here is that I was just reading how about, 3 weeks ago, before this second arrest, the cast of Secret Lives of Mormon Wives met with ABC, Disney, et cetera, executives, and were like, we don't feel comfortable filming Secret Lives of Mormon Wives with her anymore, and we want to talk to you about it. And they were basically told, like, go screw.
Yeah.
And what I think is so wild here is that ABC, Hulu, all these people, they knew these claims existed, and they put these men, these bachelors, into a dangerous situation in having her on the show with them. And then also
the crew,
right.
like all the people who are around her,
Right. And so I guess I'm just like, oh, this to me is like, and by the way, there's plenty of people who can be the Bachelorette. There's plenty of reality stars who could, be on Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. And so it's kind of this interesting thing where sometimes there's these people who like, they just allow them to go so far until eventually something comes out that they're like, oh my gosh. And the video is, we're not going to play it.
I was just going to say this. Yeah, go ahead.
We're not going to play the video because it's absolutely horrific. And what I think I found deeply horrific about it is, obviously I don't want to see anybody getting a chair thrown at them. I know there are people out there who are going to be like, well, she's a woman and he's a man. I'm like, no one should be throwing anything at anyone, first of all. But the thing that's the most concerning about it to me is that there's a child in the room.
And you can hear the kid crying. It's awful. It's really awful. Yeah, I think that's when it struck me, is like I saw the video, and I think that's probably true for everybody, is you were like, oh, I'm just so used to, as somebody who doesn't really watch these shows, I'm just so used to seeing clips of these, and I'm like, yeah, they're all buffoons. They all throw stuff at one another. They're all like ridiculous. But then you see this video and you're like, this is a difference. Like this is like true domestic violence is somebody who's out of control. There's a child in the room. You can't tell if the child is struck, but like they're certainly scared. It's very upsetting video. That woman should not be the Bachelorette of anything.
So what do you think that ABC is going to do now?
I saw a tweet today and I was like, this is what I support. The best thing they could do is put Miss Piggy in and do like a Muppets family special. I think that's their best option here. But I don't know. That's why I was shocked, because Hulu and ABC are the same company.
Right.
Like they're all under Disney. I saw Taylor Frankie Paul at the Oscars last week.
She's one of the first reality TV stars to ever attend the Oscars.
Because the Oscars are aired on ABC.
Right.
And they clearly did it. It's like they knew all this stuff. This video, by the way, is from 2023, and she pled guilty to this. Like, it's not new. It's just new that we're all seeing it.
But this is like, people have long said that James Kennedy from Vanderpump Rules cast has expressed, concerns around his behavior. He was arrested for domestic violence. I'm just like, there's people out there who don't beat up their significant others who you could give opportunities to. Like Taylor Frankie Paul isn't the only person in the world. But the other thing that someone brought up, I saw them bring this up today or yesterday on social media. And at first I was like, whatever. But they were like, one of the things about The Bachelor and The Bachelorette is that there are a lot of people who are former contestants and they make their money by like the next season.
Oh, interesting.
Commenting on the next season.
Oh, yeah, that
doing
makes sense.
podcasts. They book appearances. They have things. And so they're relying on, there's probably things they've already filmed.
Oh, for sure.
That will now not come out.
Yeah.
So like, it's a ripple effect.
Yes.
Of a lot of loss
also,
of opportunity.
By the way, like it's a ripple effect for the crew,
right.
Like the amount of people that work on it that have like nothing to do with it. I think, but I think sort of part of the problem is, like I said, is like for me, I'm like, isn't partially like this what they're making their money and viewers off of is like people doing absurd, inappropriate things and then not knowing where the line is. You know what I mean? Like I heard that she has domestic violence allegations with her partner. And I was like, yeah, but haven't we heard that with like a million different housewives? Like, isn't this like part of the culture? And it's like, then you see the video and you're like, no, this is not what I see on TV. And this is not, but I do think it speaks to like what that line is that the audience wants here, which is like chaos and drama and like.
But I also think that it brings up the conversation around kids.
Yeah.
Like, and we had Fortessa here last time, and it's like, as soon as there's a kid involved, I think everyone goes like,
yes. Oh, totally. For sure.
And, but like, you realize that like, even if a kid's not present, if their parent is like hitting someone on reality TV, that affects them. Yeah. And I think like, we've talked about how these people are just like absolutely used by these networks because they don't make a lot of money. And, Taylor Frankie Paul was making a lot of money for ABC. There's a reason why they wanted to keep her. And there's a reason why they didn't care when these other women came forward and said,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
We're scared.
It feels to me like the network is like, I don't know, this is what makes money. This is what we do on these shows. And then you see the video and you're like, okay, this is a very different situation. But it is hard to tell when networks make money off of this kind of chaos.
What do you think she's going to do now?
I think nothing. I think her career is over.
You don't think she's going to like go hardcore MAGA?
Maybe. That's a good point. Because she is MAGA.
She's already MAGA.
That's true. She could go hardcore MAGA.
And I mean, like, I'm talking like you guys, Kelly Dodd style.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't know if you know Kelly Dodd.
No.
Oh, Kelly Dodd is like, I mean, she's basically the HS Tiki-Taki of Real Housewives. You guys, by the way, HHS Tiki Taki, he's kind of growing on Meredith. Like,
I truly am like
concerned.
I feel like it's gonna be the kind of thing where like 6 months from now, you're gonna be like, I don't know, he has some good points. And one day you're gonna be like, hey, sorry, I can't come on Friday. I can't do the show. And I'm gonna be like, okay, I guess I will get a guest host. Like, fine. And then I'm gonna open my phone and you're gonna be one of the women at the round table with the Manosphere being like, I don't know, man. Like, I'm just selling my feet on the internet.
Well, here's the thing. I think it's interesting, and now we're going back to the Manosphere for a second, but I watched a video of him the other day. He was like talking about the feedback, and he said, I think Louis is an incredible documentarian.
Yeah.
And like, I just think
they were like, he's got some points.
No, but that's the awareness to look at that thing and go, oh no, he's actually really good at what he does. I think it's interesting. And then he was like, I don't have childhood trauma, but if I do, it's like in my subconscious. And I'm like, I think you just said
you're getting there.
Anyway, HHS Tiki Taki, we would welcome you as a guest.
We sure would.
I have a lot and I want his mom to come on too.
Yeah.
But we have a guest right now, and we're so excited for this one. Hold on one sec. Yep. We have with us City Council member Nithya Raman, who is running for mayor of Los Angeles. Nithya is a Los Angeles City Council member representing District 4. She's first elected in 2020. She has focused on housing affordability, tenant protections, and unhoused folks. She's an urban planner by training and the co-founder of SEL. Maybe it's SELA, or do you think we say the letters? Neighborhood Homeless Coalition. I think we have her.
Do we have Nithya? Oh, there she is.
Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, this is live, baby. So it's always a little bit, I was like, is my computer like loading on the right dock? But thank you for joining us. We're really excited that you're here. It's a beautiful day here in our city, isn't it?
Yes, it's amazing.
It's hot.
It's hot.
It's hot. Yeah.
Well, we are really excited because we want to talk to you a little bit about your decision to jump into the race. And I'm sure a lot of folks are asking you about it. So for a little bit of context, folks who may not be in LA, Nithya Raman had endorsed our current mayor, Karen Bass. And then on the day of the deadline to file, you hopped into the race. So I want to talk a little bit about what was your decision to make that switch? Who are you endorsing now?
Well, I'm endorsing myself for mayor.
We love it. We love it.
I know. Just to set everyone at ease about that. I want to just be very clear. I have been a council member now for 5 years. I was elected in 2020 and started my job really in January of 21, and I got reelected in 24. And I have worked really hard on the issues that I ran on. I ran on protecting renters, and we've passed in LA, which is an incredibly unaffordable city. We've passed some of the strongest tenant protections in the entire country, universal just cause eviction protections. We've helped people who have rent debt get a little extra time, a grace period to pay that rent debt back before they get an eviction notice. We lowered allowable rent increases in rent stabilized units, lowering allowable rent increases for over 1 million Angelenos. I worked really hard, and I led the passage of those changes. I've also worked a lot on homelessness and getting people off the street in my district. We've housed hundreds of people without using arrests and enforcement. We're really getting people indoors, into safety, into shelter, and keeping areas clear, because we're not just shoving people from sidewalk to sidewalk, we're actually housing people. And I felt like I was making real progress, but over the last couple of years, it has felt like the city is not moving forward in the same way, and maybe even moving backwards a little bit. And I don't think I'm alone in feeling that here in LA. Things feel harder here in this city, especially after the fires, especially after so much of what we experienced last year, but has been exacerbated by a real budget crisis in the city that city leadership, including this mayor, made decisions that led us into this moment that have made it much harder for us to be able to provide really essential services. We're not filling potholes. We haven't paved a single mile of street this entire year. We haven't,
$2,000 from a pothole this November. $2,000.
Well, there's a reason where we don't have enough money to pay for all the trucks that we have to have drivers in them to go around and fill potholes in the city. And that's a direct result of budgeting decisions made by this mayor and made by many, supported by many of the other city council members. And I just felt like, I ran as a mom who was concerned about issues in my neighborhood.
Sure.
And I continue to feel like something of an outsider. And I just felt like I can't stand by and not talk about how I know things could be different and better in LA. I know that things can be better here. And so I wanted to run and talk about that. And this mayor's race was going to go unchallenged. It was going to be, Mayor Bass versus Spencer Pratt.
Yes, we'll get to that. But here's my question, and this is going to feel very granular. So we're saying here that basically the city doesn't have enough money to do all these things that we need to do, whether it's the potholes and the budget cuts. And, I've been really disappointed in some of the budget cuts that Mayor Bass has made to the LA County animal shelters, because Rebecca and I are big animal rescue people. But like, where this is an annoying question, but I'm going to ask it. Where are we going to make the money up from? Because it's like, we could just Tetris the budget and move things around, but like, we just need more money.
We do. I mean, we absolutely need more money. I want to just talk about that in two parts. Okay.
Yeah.
One is, let's Tetris the money around in ways that really benefit Angelenos instead of benefiting people's political careers. That is what has happened here. So we have
an example of that. Like, can we get an example?
Yeah, absolutely. So the most powerful force in LA politics is the police union. And in our last police negotiation, the negotiation with the police contract, Mayor Bass gave the union more money than they were asking for, which never happens in negotiations. But she gave them more money than they were asking for, knowing very well that decision would cost the city hundreds of millions of dollars. We would be hundreds of millions of dollars in the hole. And that contract was approved by her, by the majority of the city council. And last year, it led to $1 billion budget deficit in the city. So that's an example of a politically motivated budgeting decision.
Got it.
I believe in city workers. I think we need a police force here in LA. We have to pay everyone so that they can afford to live in LA. The cost of living here is outrageous. But you can also give cost of living increases and pay workers fairly and still have a balanced budget and still pay for essential services for Angelenos. That's not what happened because the city made politically motivated decisions instead of actually delivering on all of the outcomes that we need. Public safety, lights, all of the things that we need in order for the city to function, because they wanted the union to support them in their election.
Thank you for giving an actual answer.
Yeah.
So many times I feel like we've pressed and we're like, okay, give us an example. And
you're
there's
like, sure, I did my homework. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, I just wanted to say you also said, where are we going to get more money from? Well, we have to really fight to invite, business here. Like, economic activity is really important, right? We also have to fight to have more people come and live in LA. Like, we need to have more property taxes. We need to have more tax-paying residents of the city. The city has actually fought new housing instead of inviting new housing to be built in LA. We need a lot more apartments so that the cost of living goes down and so that more people can live here and pay taxes here and work here in our businesses and make this into a thriving place. We have to make sure that we're fixing our business centers. Downtown LA right now is rough. There's a huge amount of vacancy. There's a lot of challenges on the streets, hygiene concerns, a lot of homelessness that is going unaddressed. You can address it in compassionate, straightforward ways, but you have to address it. And you can bring these business areas and neighborhoods back to life if we really care for them, if we build new housing, if we support businesses. That's a growth mindset for LA. That's an ambitious, joyful vision for the future of LA. That's the one that I have.
This was actually not going to be, I was going to ask you something else, but this brings me to, no, that's okay. Meredith was pointed out that Trump has said that he is opposing low-income housing in the Pacific Palisades where the fires had been. And how are you going to work against some of the things the Trump administration does, including in the space of housing? But also LA is like a big, Eye of Sauron for the Trump administration, both in terms of ICE, with the World Cup and the Olympics coming here. How are you going to push back against the administration, the federal administration?
I think we've seen examples where the Trump administration has been engaged by city leadership. So, for example, in New York, I feel like Mayor Mamdani engaged Trump and was successfully able to stop him from, sending immigration enforcement into the city, from really laying siege to the city in the way that he did for Los Angeles and for Minneapolis and Portland, Maine. Mm-hmm. I think you saw that in San Francisco, robust engagement with the administration, using every lever that we have. We have lots of people here who have ties to the administration. We know that there are ways to get to them. I think really working those avenues and pushing for the safety of Angelenos, that I think is an underutilized strategy here in the city of Los Angeles. How do we get to protecting Angelenos? I think that's really important. There's also other ways that the city can fight back. We can actively sue the Trump administration for violations of the law committed by federal law enforcement here in the city. Our city attorney can do that. Our city attorney has been quieter, less active on actually suing the Trump administration than city attorneys from other cities. So there are pathways that we can use to robustly push back to establish the safety of Angelenos that we're not using. And I would be using all of those if I were mayor.
Yeah. I think one of the things people are writing in on the, just to give you a sense, people are writing in, we don't want more people in LA. And it's like, you know what? I'm not born here. Yeah. I'm not from here. I'm a Massachusetts girl who moved out here, guys. Yeah. Like, I think,
where in Massachusetts are you from?
Oh, okay. So I grew up in Medford. We know you have Massachusetts ties.
Yes, I grew up in Burlington.
You did.
I went to,
oh my God.
You went to MIT.
I went to Arlington Catholic, and tons of Burlington people went to Arlington Catholic. Oh my God.
Yes.
And the mall.
Oh, the mall. Yes. I basically grew up in the mall. That was my should have been my residential address.
At Abercrombie.
Millennial queen.
Oh my God. This is so funny. And Rebecca lived in JP for a long time.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Great. So we're all Massachusetts people. Yeah. I mean, look, we do. I mean, I recognize that people don't want change in their neighborhoods, but right now, Los Angeles is in order for cities to be places of growth, of innovation, of places where creative people are welcomed and can build their dreams here, you have to make it affordable for them. You have to be able to make this into a place that allows creative, entrepreneurial people to show up here and build their dreams here, whether they're opening a small business, whether they're a street vendor, whether they're a writer, whether they're a musician. Like, that is what makes LA so special. That's what drew people to it and made it a place that was economically vibrant for so long. But if we're not allowing for that anymore, that means people leave. Our population has actually flatlined over the last few years, and we're seeing the most economically kind of robust parts of our population leave because they can't afford to live here anymore. So now we have a population that's aging out of working years, lower taxes. I mean, this is not a good trajectory for a city. A city needs to be a place that's really attracting people who can also, help grow the city, help grow the tax base. And yeah, I understand neighborhood change is hard. People don't want to see new construction in their neighborhoods, but I think for the health of a city, you do have to have it be a welcoming city.
What are you concerned about with LA 28 and what gets you excited? Because I will tell you this, I do have these moments where I say to my husband, like, I'm actually worried about, not from a safety perspective, but I'm worried about living here in summer of 2020.
Boston, we all know, Boston didn't want to have the Olympics there.
Well, let's be fair. That was a good show. Like, we were not ready for that.
Drop the bid, yeah.
But how do you envision approaching LA 28 versus how you think your major opponent, Karen Bass, would approach 2028 Olympics?
So I think preparation is the key here. And I don't feel like we are adequately prepared for the Olympics right now. I was
at LAX the other day and I was like, I don't know how they're going to do this. Like, God.
Yeah, just we were supposed to have a people mover in place before the World Cup. Now it's going to be at LAX. That's a big thing that hasn't happened in a timely fashion. These are things that need to move forward on a timeline. The mayor doesn't directly control every piece of it, but she is the person who is supposed to be overseeing the whole kind of local system to prepare for this mega event, which is going to have the eyes of the world upon us. And for me, preparation, I think, is really the key. Now, there's two things I'm I think it could bring a lot of economic activity here. I think could be very exciting in terms of just the community togetherness that can come up. There's going to be community watch parties. There's going to be places where people can come and really celebrate what Los Angeles is and what it means for the world. But there are things I'm really worried about. There's two big things I'm worried about. One is that if LA 28 doesn't make its budget, the city is on the hook for hundreds of millions of dollars. We're on the hook for the first $270 million of kind of budget short gaps. The state is on the hook for the next $270 million. And then anything on top of that, the city is again on the hook.
Wow.
That's hundreds of millions of dollars that we don't have right now. We're already in a budget crisis. Even if we made different decisions, we would still not be able to make up that kind of shortfall. So that's something that keeps me up at night. So I would be working every single day to make sure that whatever LA 28 is doing, that they're staying within budget, maybe even under budget, so that we can actually deliver a games that doesn't burden the people of Los Angeles into the future. The second question I have, and I think it is important for safety, we're inviting federal law enforcement into our city at a time when ICE has played a very frightening role here, very frightening. And so how do you make sure that that engagement with federal law enforcement doesn't endanger Angelenos? Have we done enough work as a city to ensure that federal law enforcement presence is not going to harm Angelenos, is not going to lead to some of the most terrifying scenes that we saw on LA streets last year and that are still happening? There's raids that are still happening all over this region. So I think we need to work much harder with LA 28 that has significant kind of engagement with the Trump administration and with the federal administration to make sure that these games are playing out in a way that's safe for Angelenos.
Yeah. Yeah. And let's just keep in mind, these are summer 2028. And what's fall 2028?
I know.
A presidential election. And I mean, of course, I do think that Trump will try to pull some sort of wild thing where he can run again. But I think even if he isn't, they're going to be like trying to, they're looking at this and they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. We can make LA look so bad, make the Democrats look so bad.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh,
I know,
it's all coming together right now.
I know. Whenever I hear people who want to run for office right now, I'm like, bless you, because this sounds terrible to me, to be honest. Before we let you go, I'm curious, you are a Democrat, but you also are associated with the Democratic Socialist Party. I've heard you be sort of compared a little bit to the Zoran run in New York. We saw Kat Abou-Ghazaleh get close to running for Congress in Illinois. I'm curious how you carry that mantle and like this sort of push-pull between what a Democrat is versus a Democratic Socialist and how you carry that with you.
Yeah, I really I have a different approach to how I think about government than I think a lot of people do, partly because I love cities so much. Politics is not necessarily my path into the future. I just really like LA and I want it to work for Angelenos. And so when I think about being a Democrat, when I think about being a member of the DSA, I really think about making government work for people because I believe in the power of government to do good. I really believe that this city can be so good for residents, can really, help them through their toughest moments, can lift people up when they're most vulnerable, like when they're on the streets, and can deliver on all of the things that we need to succeed in our daily lives, whether it's a pothole-free street or a well-lit street or a shaded street, all of these things that I think are really the essentials, a safe street. So for me, the approach to governing is really about trying to make government work for people, to make people feel like the government is a positive and present source of support in their lives. And that has driven my approach every step of the way. And I feel like LA can be more. That's the message that I took to people at their doors when I first ran for office. Like this, do you know what the city can do for you? And people were excited about that vision. And I think this mayoral run is about the same thing, is about trying to tell people, a lot of people I think have given up on LA city government. A lot of people are like, oh, it's a city. You can't expect better. And my approach, because it comes from, I think, a robust vision of what government can do, is really like, no, we should expect more. We should expect better. We should expect delivery. We should expect that the government can work, and we should expect that the government can be a positive presence in our lives.
Well, Nithya Raman, we are so grateful for your time this morning, and we are going to be continuing to follow your run, and we hope you'll come back and chat with us again. This was really interesting.
Anytime, especially if there's a specific issue you want to talk about. I love talking and I love engaging with people. So anytime that you want to engage with me, I'm here.
Thank you. Best of luck. It was so nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Bye. Yeah, the LA 28. The thought of being that is to be in charge of that budget if it hits back, and with the
you know who's in charge of the LA 28 budget? You and me. Okay?
Oh no.
You and me and Gabby in the booth.
No.
Think about it. Who's gonna
pay
make that
for
money
this?
up?
Yeah.
This is like you're planning a big party
Also,
and you're like,
I feel like famously the Olympics loses money, right? Like, doesn't every city end up being like, we didn't really, make that money back in the end?
Yeah. Somebody was writing in the chat and they were like, for what it's worth, Mitt Romney, ran a great Olympics. And I'm like, sure, I'm not here to like dunk on Mitt Romney. Like, he was my governor. Like,
dunk on Mitt Romney.
My favorite photo of Mitt Romney, and I think we could probably pull this up for clips, is after he lost the 2012 election.
Uh-huh.
Do you remember there was this photo of him circulating of him at a gas station? He looked like so disheveled. He looked like, I was like, oh God, this is the man that wanted to be the president. He was like pumping gas, which also too, it's like, you don't really think of Mitt Romney as pumping gas.
That's interesting. I don't know if I ever saw that photo. I think of him as like, he was not my candidate, but he's like a very handsome.
Yeah, he's very sort of, he's a Mormon, so he's kind of like, yes. I feel like Vienna, I'll try to find this photo for Vienna as we get into your moment.
Yeah.
What's going on with you? What's having a moment for you?
What's having a moment for me is I've been reading Lindy West's new book, Adult Braces Driving Me Sane. And I have lots of thoughts. I think we're going to try and get her on the show.
Oh, great.
I think so. But I love Lindy West so much. She's such a phenomenal writer. This is such a well-written book. I'm listening to it on audio, and it's really fun because she's delivering the audio, but then interspersed with it are voice memos that she just did along her journey. Because it is a road trip.
Yep.
The plot of the book, it's a memoir, is that in my opinion, her husband sprung on her that suddenly he wanted to be polyamorous and sort of like didn't really give her much of an option. And then she had to sort of figure out for herself who she was as an individual in her marriage, as a writer, as a person living in a fat body. And like, that is the crux of the journey. And then so throughout, she'll be like, okay, on highway, blah, 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 blah. And then it'll just be her talking into her phone. And some days she's happy and some days she's sad. And you can really hear that Lindy voice that you end up getting in her writing, but you get like the first draft of it. And so that's really cool. And, I think she's been getting a lot of hate online though. And
what specifically is like the hate directed about?
Well, so the book is about, so what happened in, I think it was like 2023, 24, there was a video that came out of she and her husband, who was a big part of her first book, Shrill, that became a TV show. And they announced that they were in a throuple with another woman. And the internet was like, what?
Yeah.
And so now this book is sort of like the pullback of that.
Of how it all sort of happened.
Yeah. And Lindy says like she's very happy. She is still in this throuple. She's very happy with her relationship. But in reading the book, for me, you're like, I don't know, this guy kind of sucks. Like, I would leave my husband if he did that. Like it's, and I think a lot of people who cherish her as a feminist writer and hold her to like an extremely high standard are disappointed that she's sort of, I don't know, in the public view, shrinking herself for her husband's needs in a way that it doesn't feel like he's doing back. But this is what I would like to ask her about. Is it's super complicated because it's like, that's, as a memoir reader, as somebody who loves her work, I agree. I'm reading this book and I'm like, I think this guy sucks. And I don't think you've made a case for why he doesn't suck. But
maybe that's not the point. Like, you know what I mean?
It's definitely not the point. And it's her marriage. You know what I mean? It's like,
that's
what's
the other thing.
Well, that's the difference. It's like, what's the difference between me reading her as a memoirist, and she has put this out for consumption and like judgment and pulling it apart, and what part of it is like, hey, this is my personal marriage, and like I can stay married to whomever.
Before I was married, I heard somebody say, that like marriage is really complicated and the only people who really know what's going on in a marriage are the two,
100%,
maybe three people who are in it. And sometimes even they don't know. And so I don't think, 100%. And I also think that happens in long-term partnership. Like, I don't mean that you have to be married, but and I'm not saying it to be like, well, because I'm married. No, but I'm just like,
it's complicated.
Marriage is really and that's one of the things that I don't think our society teaches anyone going into long-term marriage, because I think like it's just sort of this idea of like, if it works, great, and if it doesn't, great. Not the sort of in between of how fucking complicated it is to blend your life with another human being who went into the world, had totally different experiences, came out of it with totally different experiences, and now you're supposed to, I don't know, it's just, when I always go back to that part in Little Women where she's like, marriage is a financial decision. And like, and it is for both, you know, it doesn't matter if you're heterosexual, who you're in a marriage with, but it is like, God, marriage is fucking complicated.
So that's the part in which I'm like, I really give her great. There's a part in the book where she says something to the effect of like, I really want to be somebody who we're very old one day and we look at one another and say, hey, remember that really hard thing we went through? Aren't you glad that we didn't give up during that really hard thing? And so in that way, I'm like, yeah, respect is like, marriage is different than like, you know, a boyfriend, you know, like the idea is that it's there and it's good and it's bad and life is up and down and like life as a single person is up and down.
Right.
And I think this guy sucks. Sorry. I just like, I found him.
That's like a different thing though. You know what I mean? It's like,
totally.
It's
well, and like, I also think that that's, I don't know, that's what I would, if we get Lindy on, it's less that I want to ask her like, hey, why did you stay with your shitty husband? And more about like, hey, what's the difference between reading your life and writing about your life as a memoir, as something to be like looked at and like talked about intellectually, versus like the lived experience of like, you're still going home to this man and like what parts.
Someone's writing in the chat. They're like, Lynn, sure, she's quote unquote happy. And here's the other thing I'd say, little devil. You guys, who isn't questioning if they're happy or not? You know what I mean?
Like, that's going to say that. Like, I was just going to say, is like, what is happiness? I don't know.
I remember Stephanie Wilder Taylor, who's been on the show before and is a friend of mine. She's a great writer. I remember her saying once on her show, she was like, I'm not happy, I'm content.
Yes.
And like, what is happiness? Happiness is a fleeting thing that we chase. And it's sort of like, you know, I hate to quote him because I got mixed feelings on him these days, but I quote Jerry Seinfeld when I say marriage is find the level of misery that you are willing to commit to and go with that. Because there is a part of marriage that is that.
You know, what's interesting too, like now that we're like chewing on all of it, is like, I do also wonder, you know, Shrill came out and we were all like, we all kind of grew up together. Lindy's a little bit older than I am, but like,
that was quite the flex.
No, but
no, but just like, so you guys know, Lindy's
a little bit.
I have
older.
A late birthday, so
I'm a baby. No, but I mean, like Lindy was my like elder. She was like cool older sister. I like grew up in the Jezebel feminist era where like Lindy was. But my point being is that when Shrill came out, when her writing came out, we were all, including Lindy, a little bit younger and perhaps a little bit more naive. And we were like, yeah, we like the happy ending where she gets the guy. She's a bigger woman who got the guy in the end. And like now we're all sort of like middle-aged women who are like, I don't know, like maybe there is no happy ending. Maybe it's up and down. Another thing that she talks about a lot in this book that really resonated with me is the experience of working on the Shrill TV show and what it was like to be like, hey, I'm at the height, like I'm the person that people look to and I'm living the dream. And she was like very unhappy. And I could relate to that. And so I think some of this is also about like, hey, what is the up and down of life and where do you find happiness and what's acceptable misery and where do you stay with people and how do you grow and in bad situations.
I think that's a really great way to transition to my moment because my moment is how do you go through ups and downs? How do you transition? How do you stay with people? How do you move away from them? And I'd love if Vienna would pull up the photo that represents this.
Ooh.
Here it is.
Speaking at Polly.
This is like my father after he had to pick one of us like drunk up at a party or something. And he's like, I know I said you could call me if you ever need anything, but now I'm pissed. Like, look at this. This is like 48 hours after he lost the election. He's like filling up the Buick.
Yowza. Vienna wants to pull up a headline that accompanied that. And we say, yes, please.
Please.
I can't read it that far away.
I've been having a hard time reading the thing today.
Mitt Romney at my local gas station. ... He looks tired and washed up.
Relatable.
Yeah. Poor
Relatable.
thing.
But
honestly, like, that sounds like being a woman, you know? Like, he finally got the female gaze.
But I also remember thinking, like, God, he looks so unpresidential. Like, of course he's not.
And it's like, shirt, man.
And now look where we are.
Yeah.
Like, now look where it is. I'm like, I would take Mitt Romney at a gas station.
Mitt Romney became the hero. Like, truly, who would have guessed? I know.
And also, you know what? I guess, according to this, this TikToker ran a hell of an Olympics.
There you go. Well.
Anyway, you guys, we'll be back on Tuesday.
Yeah. Oh, I'm excited for Tuesday.
Remind me. It's Mitt Romney. Oh my God, it's Senator Chris Murphy.
I had a moment where I was like, am I sure that that's on Tuesday?
No. It is Senator Chris Murphy.
Now I live in Los Angeles.
Yes.
But I grew up in Connecticut. My brother, who's been on this show, was valedictorian of his high school. Senator Chris Murphy came and was like the guest speaker together.
Wow.
My family loves Chris Murphy.
I know they love Chris Murphy.
Which, by the way, doesn't mean that we're not going to ask him questions that we want to ask. You know,
that's
full disclosure, my family loves Chris Murphy.
Yeah. I mean, listen, there's lots of people who come on that we like agree with a lot of what they say, but we're still going to ask them questions. And I think that's what makes this show so fun. Not fun, but like important.
Yeah.
Is like
it's a conversation.
Like just even today, we were like, tell us exactly how you're going to make that budget move. Like I was like, I need numbers because I'm not paying for that.
I know.
Shit.
And we're going to ask Lindy West what the deal's with her husband.
But yeah, that's our guest. And you know what? I'm really excited because you know what we're really going to talk about? We're going to talk a lot about private equity.
Yeah. And this is your cook. Meredith is going to.
Pretty impressive how much I know about private equity for someone who needed a waiver to pass college math. So anyway, suck on that, Mrs. 40, 6th grade math.
Wow.
Oh, I have a resentment.
Yeah. I do too. I know we're both girls who didn't do math. And
do you know what she did once? So she, it was, I know we're at time, but I will tell my traumatizing Mrs. 40 story because this is like one of my favorite stories.
Take us out.
So basically, we had a math final and I knew I had absolutely bombed it. And then after we finished, the boys were like, can you grade it right now? And she was like, sure, you guys just like stand around. I'll grade your papers and then I'll just hand them to you.
That's a hate crime.
It is. And I got a 34. And everyone was laughing at me. And I was so worried because I knew my mother would be really, really mad at me. Right.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the school day, I got in the car and I burst into tears.
Understandably.
And I said, Mom, I'm so sorry. I got a 34 on my math final. And my mother was like, oh, okay. Like, how do you already know that? And so I explained what happened. And she was like, oh, it's fucking on. Yeah. So first, she took me to Tower Records and let me buy 3 CDs.
Which ones?
I do remember getting Hanson. That's the only one I remember getting. She bought me 3 CDs. And then the next morning, guess who was marching up to the school to scream at Mrs. 40 in the other room?
That's
so
right.
loud that other kids heard my mother yelling. And I will just say my mom was not somebody who always took the teacher's side.
Yeah,
like I definitely ate shit multiple times.
Yeah.
But yeah, my mom was like, oh, you do not fucking pull that with my kid.
That is the correct take.
So anyway, I love you, Ma. I miss ya. Okay, you guys. We'll be back on Tuesday.
We will. Bye.